Greetings, peace and blessings to you, family. Today we're getting ready to go on a little stroll here on this cloudy day here in Rwanda. However, we'd like to discuss some of the turn of events that have taken place, namely the downside and decline of the US dollar. How is that going to affect those of us of the diasporas, the countries on the continent of Africa? Stay tuned. But meanwhile, be sure subscribe, like,
and share
and comment. Greetings, peace and blessings. We are the Mohammeds, the residential tourist. 85 to Africa. We are living in the after. And this morning, it's a beautiful morning, although it's not as sunny.
Middle of rainy season.
Yeah, we woke up this morning and it was bright and sunny, but very quickly, the clouds came in. However, we thought we'd still go on a stroll in this lovely African country called Rwanda.
So today we have some deep thinking questions that we want to talk about.
Yes.
How does it affect the diaspora on the continent? How does it affect Africa? How does it affect our home continent?
Right.
The falling of the US dollar.
So you probably are aware, for those of you who are paying attention, to the news, that the US dollar is in great question. It is in the position of on the decline. It is falling because of some decisions that have been made by many countries, many major countries. And Africa has, as a continent, has begun, not all of Africa, but some major countries on the continent have begun to follow suit. Kenya being one of them.
East Africa in general.
East Africa, really, true. East Africa. In fact, you have the East African community that has actually begun in federation, if you will. And so they are looking in terms of trying to establish a single currency, as well as some West African countries who have begun to do the same. In addition, you have some African countries who are beginning to no longer import oil from outside of the continent, utilizing their neighboring countries, which is Zambia, right? And Angola. So,
and reason being is we learned that the U.S. had an agreement with Saudi Arabia,
right,
to they're only allowed to use the U.S. dollar to back for their oil. So any country that was getting their oil from Saudi Arabia had to purchase it in the U.S. in the U.S. dollar, which is pretty much the most high value you can at that time get for the price of oil. So now that the decline of the American dollar, Saudi Arabia is like, we're about done trying to please the U.S. We're going to take our oil out of the U.S. dollar. which changes everything for the world,
For
really.
the world, because you know the USD was the dominant currency. It was the dominant currency. There was the, as my wife was saying, it was
You want to
the
come on?
the currency. He's watching us. It was the currency that was utilized to buy the oil and many other things. But because of the relationship or the lack thereof of the U.S. and its African countries,
Oh, we're going this way.
oh yeah, we can go this way. Then it has been brought into question if, in fact, these countries want to maintain that relationship. Okay, and other countries, namely China, who has established seemingly a better relationship with the African countries, they seem to be having more favorable results. And so the question is, you know, how does that affect the decision of those of us who are looking to come to the continent, right? And also, let's step up here. With that, there's an understanding that, you know, this is our experience. We mentioned it before that many of us look at those from America as the cash cow. It was that USD, it was that American dollar that, you know, seemingly for them had a certain level of value. But if or when it declines or doesn't have that perceived value, then what? Now what?
So, like, countries like, you want me to try?
Please. My arm is hurting.
Countries like Tanzania, where the US dollar was 2 point something times the value, it changes. So sometimes 2.2, 2.1, whatever it is, you will go to Tanzania and say you want to spend $40 US dollars, you're going to get about 84 Tanzanian shillings for it. It's going to be twice the value. It was twice the value. So we will come from the continent like, wow, we can get a lot of money for our US dollars. You can go on vacation with $200 and get 400 and something T shillings for it. So you're thinking, okay, we're going to have a nice trip. Cost of living, we're going to go over and pay 300 US dollars for a monthly rent over there, because it's 600 and something T shillings. Well, all of that is going to change.
Possibly, potentially.
It's going to change.
I mean, it's going to change, but we don't know, you know, which way it's going to go, good, bad, or indifferent. You see?
Well, so what does that mean for us that rely on the U.S. dollar?
That's the part.
Right. So even here in Rwanda, where the Rwandan francs and the U.S. dollars are pretty much almost equal. You know, I don't have that much strength.
I got it.
We're pretty much almost equal. I think $1 I think the dollar then dropped to 10.52. So 1,000 francs, which is $1 for us, is like $1.52 for 1,000 francs. So the value is pretty much the same here. It doesn't affect us, the diaspora, as much here in Rwanda as we already been paying cost. And but other countries, it's going to make a major impact.
Sure. For
the U.S., everyone's going to be real healthy soon, because everybody's going to be riding bikes. Because the cost of fuel, if Saudi Arabia cut their ties with America,
it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. But see, the thing is that, you know, it's really in the fact that these African countries are banding together, right?
Which is great.
It's great, man. It's absolutely great. I mean, you know, you have again,
It's raining.
East African community looking in terms of developing, if I'm saying that correctly, themselves into a federation, which, removes borders.
That's great.
Um,
That's beautiful. Long time coming.
and also a single currency to be utilized, which initially was set to be ready by 2024. However, they thought to slow the pace up a little bit just to make sure all the kinks is ironed out. So now, to me, from what I'm looking at it, it's empowering. And then you have West Africa, the economic community of West African states.
We need to turn around. It's raining.
I believe Ghana is a part of that. I believe Nigeria. Nigeria, Ivory Coast. I'm not Benin. So it's a good number of them that's a part of that. And with the East African community, you have Rwanda, of course. You have Uganda, Burundi. You have Tanzania. You have the DRC and South Sudan. Not that I was able to see.
It is. It isn't.
Right. So, at any rate, so is it now or never? If you're, if you're in limbo in terms of coming to the continent, it might be prime time to come, or
it might be prime time. But think of airlines, the ones that are coming from the States.
Crazy.
Fuel charges gonna be, oh my goodness, it's gonna be crazy. So there's a lot of things at stake, a lot of things that we got to think about, and we'll talk about more in the future.
Sure.
Because we want answers, so we want, if you guys can help us out. I'm trying to understand, how does it affect the diaspora who relies on American dollars, that's here on the continent or other places in the world, that's going to be letting the US dollar go,
right,
changing over to Chinese currency or the German currency. They're still figuring it out. So changing over to the other currencies, how does it affect those that are retired, that get Social Security, disability, the military, whatever the retirement is? How does it affect their money? How does it affect?
Great questions.
The future, like we have people that's coming here, and their first thing is they want to take their money out of the U.S. banks. The banks are the banks are crashing. So it's a whole lot that we got to figure out.
It's a lot to consider. It's really a lot to consider, and really think about. What we would like to do is we would like to actually share some clips with you from what we've come across to give more detail as to some of these events and these decisions, these things that are coming about that we are looking to anticipate down the line.
The winds of change are blowing across Africa as an increasing number of countries are moving away from their reliance on the US dollar. Tanzania, South Sudan, and several other nations are leading the charge towards alternative currencies, with hopes that this shift will signal the end of the long-standing dominance of the dollar. Recently, the East Africa community has decided that a unified currency can be established within the next 4 years, despite a technical working group recommending a deadline of 2031. The initial schedule for the unified currency had it in place by 2024. This 4-year push was initiated by East Africa Community Secretary General Peter Mathuki, who stated that the East African Monetary Union will be achieved within the next 4 years. He added that the single currency will facilitate business and the movement of people within the region, aligning with the goal of making the region borderless, enabling people to move and trade freely as outlined in the Common Market Protocol. One of the most significant advantages of a unified currency is the ease of trade and movement of goods and people within the region. Businesses will no longer have to deal with the complexities and costs of currency conversion, making it easier to conduct cross-border trade. Additionally, it will make it simpler for individuals to travel within the region, and also make it easier for them to invest and save. The region has been making steady progress toward this goal, and with the right planning and execution, a unified currency could be a major step toward greater economic integration and prosperity for the region.
ECOWAS pushes launch of single currency to 2027. Mr. Jean-Claude Brou, President of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Commission, has said that the community has resumed convergence to launch of the ECOWAS single currency, ECO, in 2027. We are looking at 2022 to 2026 to be able to create conditions that will enable us to stabilize the economies. And so, 2027 we go back to the currency.
In a bold move, Kenyan President William Ruto announced that his government will no longer buy fuel using the dollar. Instead, he proposed a plan to purchase oil using the national currency, the Kenyan shilling. I want to assure those in Kenya who were facing challenges of access to dollars that we have taken steps to ensure dollar availability in the next couple of weeks. Things are going to be different because our fuel companies will now be paying for fuel in Kenyan shilling, Ruto stated at the Nairobi.
That as a government we have made innovative intentions and have taken innovative strategy to ensure that we ease the burden of availability of dollar in our market. We just concluded last week an arrangement, a market-driven arrangement in our fuel sector that will see Kenya access all our fuel needs on a deferred 6-month credit. That will eliminate a demand of $500 million every month from this market. And therefore, for the people who work numbers, I am giving you free advice that those of you who are holding dollars, you surely might go into losses. You better do what you must do, because this market is going to be different in a couple of weeks.
Please, we'd love to hear your comments. Definitely please like and please share and subscribe, of course. And looks like we're going to probably have a continuing conversation or discussion about this as time goes on. And yeah, we love to hear what you guys are thinking or think with these turn of events that have and are taking place. All right, so
It's raining on me.
it's raining.
It's cold.
So we're going to go back into the house. So as always, thank you so very much. We greatly appreciate you guys. Peace and blessings.